Welcome, coaches, to the final video of the series on the Code of Ethics for 2025. I'm very excited to have Sue McMahon with me, and she is going to cover the pledge and some additional things just to wrap up this series. So, Sue, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you were involved in this process?
Thanks, Brighton, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love the opportunity to share with all of our coaching friends and family about what they don't maybe know and how we can support them around ethics. I was invited to participate on this code review as one of the 3 steering committee members. And that was a new part of this process for a code review. So I'll say a little bit about that in a minute, but I just mentioned that I was the past chair of the IRB, and I did that for 8 years. I served on every code review since 2004, and it's been, for me, really a privilege to see this ongoing evolution, what we learn from each code review we do, and, as coaching grows, the things that we are now looking at in terms of ethics that we didn't look at, 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So just wanted to mention that part of this code review process started 6 months prior to the code review team actually getting into action. And that was just the 3 of us on the steering committee. What we did is we gathered all the information and input we'd had from feedback along the way, things from the independent review board, things that were hard to adjudicate, things that were hard to translate for coaches. We just gathered all that information and we created a survey. We then sent that survey out to all the stakeholders in ICF and asked for their feedback. And also we did some very really important interviews with the FOs and other subject matter experts that helped give us enough data to create a more narrowed document that was then shared with the code review team to actually focus on. So, and besides that, we created an onboarding process that also was kind of a new way of being sort of ensuring that we really had a lot of inclusivity and a lot of diversity. Languages, cultural, geographic areas, many things. And so the upfront work for 6 months was pretty intense. And once that happened, we could sort of step back and be more in a role of guiding the leaders who were actually chosen, 3 leaders, and kind of guide them, be there to support them, and let them do the work with their teams.
Thank you for that background of how the code came about. We're bringing this to you at the end, but that seemed to be the appropriate place to put this just because Sue has been with this process for such a long time. And this is a great code that they came up with. But let's talk about the pledge specifically. The last part of the code is the pledge. So why is it that you guys decided that a pledge needed to be part of this code?
Well, most codes have a pledge at the end. And I think the reason that it really is important at the end because it sort of emphasizes that this is what I read the code, I know what I'm sort of signing up for, and this is what I agree. This is the integrity and the professionalism with which I agree to abide by. And interesting, what we did in this code too is it was a 2-paragraph standard in the 2020 code. And we actually moved it so that the accountability piece was moved into the standards where it was professional integrity and accountability. And that left the paragraph that basically indicates that this is what I pledge to do. This is the promise I make to the profession and to myself and to the people that I serve. And we thought that it was a more positive and stronger emphasis on the promise.
Well, maybe you could pull out some key parts of this pledge. I know there's only 1 paragraph, but when reading it, I noticed there are some key things like family organizations and across the profession. So pull out some of those key things that you guys put into the pledge.
So the obligation and the pledge is really important because what that stands for, or what it basically refers to, is the responsibilities that are required by all ICF professionals. And it's what we expect from everyone inside the ICF ecosystem in terms of ethical conduct. So the commitment to integrity and professionalism is so important because that's what helps ensure fairness, honesty, and respect that coaches are seen as, or hopefully seen as. Another part that's interesting is that this year we included the family organizations, and that had not been done before because the family organizations did not come into play until after the last code was completed. So what that has done is created a more one ICF. These family organizations, there's 6 of them, if that hasn't been talked about, and people are still still new to the idea. And each of these family organizations represents a part of the ICF that mostly already existed. Some are new, but we really wanted to ensure that we were holding the entire ecosystem to a very ethical sphere.
Yeah, and one other thing I noticed was the words all my professional interactions. So maybe you can talk about that. Why was that included?
So all ICF professionals pledge to commit to accountability to the code in all their interactions as a professional. So that would mean that whether you're in a coaching relationship or not, you are held accountable to the ICF Code of Ethics. This is for all members and all credential holders. And it also includes when you're acting in a role as a coach trainer, a mentor coach, coaching student, a board member or volunteer. And it's not just limited to that, but that gives you an idea. It could be coaching supervision. So when we say that this code is something that we commit to, it's in all those.
Okay, good to know, good to know. So, well, one thing that I wasn't really sure of, typically with a pledge, I feel like you should sign it or something like that. Is there a signing of the pledge, or is that kind of just built into when you interact with ICF, this is what you're signing up for?
In terms of having to sign the code, that is not something that's expected or even offered. But what is expected is that it's a personal, you're making a personal pledge, and also at the same time, somewhat of a public pledge, because you are all signing up to agree to abide by all the same standards of the code. And one part of that is that we hold each other accountable as coaches, just knowing what the expectations are. So it's not just for the people we serve, I should say. It's not just for the people we serve as coaching professionals, but also for all those that we are colleagues with.
Great. So are there resources here? This isn't really part of the pledge, not really. This is part of the extra stuff that we're adding into this last video. So are there any resources that we can probably haven't mentioned throughout this series yet?
Yeah, I think that's, I'm glad that you asked that because I really want people to know that there are places they can go to get support around ethics. So first of all, there's the Ethics Assist line, and all these can be found on the ICF website. The Ethics Assist line will answer questions about the ethical conduct review process or anything you need to know about a complaint process with a training school. It's a place where you can get a lot of answers, find out other things about the Code of Ethics. Then there's the Ethics Community of Practice, and that's a quarterly meeting. It's virtual and it provides one CEU. It is for members, but non-members can also participate for a small fee, I believe. And then they have subject matter experts. They do different conversations and topics that are of interest and shared before you sign up, so you'll know that. Did I say those are on a quarterly basis? And then there's a monthly water cool conversation that is a more casual conversations for people who are interested in ethics or might have a dilemma that they want to share in a confidential space where they're able to talk to their peers and just see what others' experiences are around maybe a similar issue. There is the Insights and Considerations, which is a document that was created after the last code was created, and it's basically if you go and look at it, if you have any question about a particular standard, you can go and find an ICE statement, Insights and Considerations for Ethics. And you can look up that particular standard and see what are some things you might want to consider? Because ethics is all about a thoughtful process of it's not a rule. It's not a set of rules. So you might find some guidance or wisdom that will help you in your in a potential ethical dilemma. Then there's also the ICF FAQs, where you will find what are some of the most asked questions are. And there is a complimentary online ethics course that's created after each code is put out, and that is 3 CEs, and that can be used towards your credential renewal, which requires that you have 3 CEs. So all that can be found, I think, on the learning management system on the ICF website.
Okay, great. Thank you for adding that, because this video series is one way that we're adding to the ICF Code of Ethics. But having additional resources is always great because people tend to learn in so many different ways. But before we wrap up this video, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, I want to thank everybody. First of all, I think that's so important because this was more than a team effort. This was there were so many stakeholders across the ICF ecosystem that contributed to, both their energy and time to us putting together, sort of consolidating information into a process that the team could use for review. But I do want to say that there were 14 members on the team that deserve a really big round of applause because it was hard work, and their dedication to and attention to detail was phenomenal. Those individuals were led by 3 of our leaders who were amazing: Jürgen Bache, Lola Chetty, and Kathy Liska. And then I also want to thank my 2 co-conspirators. Is that a word I can use on an ethics call? They were my teammates on the steering committee, and that is Carrie Dowse and Gurkan Suriglu. And of course, the director and assistant director of ethics and compliance at ICF is Kristen Kelly and Alyssa Johns. They were fabulous.
Wonderful. That is so great. And so great that all of you took this opportunity to get involved in ICF beyond just the role as a coach. I think there are other roles for people too, other ways for people to get involved, for coaches to get involved and do more. And I think, I don't know, maybe you could tell us some of the benefits beyond being able to just put forth the code of ethics. I'm sure that you've been meeting with some great people, meeting with some great staff. So are there other benefits that you can kind of tease out there for people who are watching this and are like, oh, I want to raise my hand and get involved as a volunteer too?
Yeah, getting involved as a volunteer. I've been volunteering with ICF since I joined in 2003, and I've had so many great experiences. I've learned so much, and I've made such great friends. And there's just so much to learn in any opportunity. ICF provides such great support for their volunteers. I find it fun and enjoyable, and ethics in particular, because it's very stimulating, and the people who are involved in it are very wise. There's so much that I get out of our calls and out of our work together, but there are other ways to get involved, and I would say get on the ICF website and do a little exploring there and see if there's something that speaks to you. The family organizations are always looking for board members and there's different application processes for different things there, but I would say there's so much that there has to be something there. If you're a coach, there's got to be something in there of interest to you, and I hope that you will take the time to contribute to our great organization.
Great organization. Yes, awesome. And it makes the conferences, the international conferences, more fun because you'll have people that you've met virtually that you'll get together with and you'll feel like you know them already. So, Sue, thank you so much for this video and for all of the work that you've done on the code, months and months and months of work on the code. And thanks to all of you for watching this series. So I'm going to have some other videos up here because there are so many more resources on the ICF YouTube channel. Check those out and we'll see you in another video. Thank you so much for watching.